What is Pokemon? Well, to put it simply, Pokemon is just a monster fighting simulator. You raise and train creatures to be as strong as they can be, that way you can take on the most powerful trainers out there and then eventually become Pokemon champion. Now, when it comes to the games, it doesn't just end there. After you become champion, there's a lot more resources that become available to you, that way you can utilize them and become a true Pokemon master. So, to answer what Pokemon is, it's about raising Pokemon and then using them in competition, which brings us to what this video is about. Because there's all that controversy going on with the national dex and everything else going on with Pokemon Sword and Shield, but I feel that people are being very dishonest in their arguments, or they don't realize how much of a minority they really are. Game Freak's biggest reason for reducing the national dex is for competitive balance. Now, Pokemon is more competitive than anything, and that's what this video is going to be about. So if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, share with your friends. I feel like we really need to start thinking about Pokemon competitively again. But during Pokemon X and Y, that's when everyone came back in. They were like, you know what? I'm going to get good at Pokemon. I'm going to be better than my friends. I am going to embody the true spirit of Pokemon and become a Pokemon master. But that's died like over the last 5 years or so. So I think we need to start bringing that back. That's why you should share it with your friends, support this channel, support this video, and then we can go into the rest of Pokemon. So yeah, I've been seeing a lot more arguments about how the national dex is worth more than it is, or how the story is the only reason why people play Pokemon games, but that doesn't really add up. And it also kind of goes into this weird split that Pokemon has, because Pokemon, even throughout its story, it's a lot about gym battling, which is competitive, and then you have this little side plot that's going on where you like save the world or you save the region, and then you just become champion anyways. And the fact is, the story is the least important thing when it comes to Pokemon. When you factor in the hundreds of hours of post-game content and then the infinite replayability of something like the Battle Frontier or online PvP, story is probably like 5% of the games. Even in your initial playthrough, it's more about the adventure than, oh, some bad guy's in my way and now I can't progress the game until I deal with this storyline. So that's why I feel like, no, having an argument for story or having an over argument for national dex doesn't really represent the majority of the Pokemon gameplay out there. Now, I know there's going to be a lot of people in the comment section that are like, but that's wrong, because since we're not going to have all the Pokemon Sword and Shield, there's going to be so little gameplay that it's only going to be the story and nothing else. Now, that's just completely false, and we can even look at an existing generation, like Generation 4. Generation 4 didn't even have 500 total Pokemon available, and because of like transfer weirdness, events that never ended up happening, legendary exclusives, all kinds of different restrictions and stuff, it was even less than that. Now, Pokemon Sword and Shield is incredibly likely going to have over 500 Pokemon, and maybe closer to 6, if not over 600 Pokemon, so there's going to be more Pokemon to catch and engage with than in Generation 4, but in Generation 4, that was the most I ever played Pokemon. Between Diamond and Pearl, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, I probably played close to 3,000 hours of Pokemon. I wouldn't know, because both of those cartridges were maxed out at 999 hours, and I definitely kept playing well beyond that time. So it shows that even not having all the Pokemon doesn't impact the amount of gameplay, because it's about training and using the Pokemon that you have, while also utilizing the tons of other gameplay that's going to be inside of Pokemon Sword and Shield. And I feel like that's where a lot of people are misguided with their hate of Pokemon Sun and Moon, because you just hear them say, story bad, games bad, and yeah, while the story was very handholdy and a struggle to get through at times, if we're considering that it's just a small amount of the games, it's not enough to inherently destroy the games, especially when there's a lot of good post-game content inside of Pokemon Sun and Moon. It's just that the post-game content wasn't really utilized for many reasons. I blame hacking, but I'd also say that the biggest problem, where the criticism needs to be, or where, you know, most of the negativity should go towards Pokemon Sun and Moon, is the Festival Plaza, as well as the Global Link. Because you have to link with the Global Link to play on the rated battle spot, but the Global Link didn't work for most people at the launch of the game, so they couldn't even play competitive, or they couldn't at least do the random matchmaking, which is most of the competitive Pokemon battling, and I think it still didn't even work up until the end of Pokemon Sun and Moon, and then the matchmaking inside the Festival Plaza was just absolute hot garbage. So I think that is like more what killed Pokemon Sun and Moon, that the battle tree was fine, exploring the region, getting stronger Pokemon, all of the other post-game stuff was still about what you expect from a Pokemon game, but then it was being able to utilize that fell flat and eventually, or at least mostly, killed Pokemon Sun and Moon. But I feel like it wasn't the story that was the problem, and that brings me to like Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. inversely, Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee has some of the best competitive we've seen in like a decade inside of Pokemon because it's the most accessible. You know, we don't have any EV training. It's really easy to do catch combos. It's a lot more engaging than breeding, and then you don't have to worry about any kind of weird chains and stuff. IVs aren't as big of an issue as well, so you can just have all of your Pokemon learn all the moves they need to through accessible TMs, heart scales, and then you just go out and battle, and then the battles are also a bit more simplified as well. You don't have to worry about items, abilities. It's just raw Pokemon fighting, and it made for some of the best competitive Pokemon we've seen, but the Pokemon community is so lost and misguided at this point that they're making it about the Pokemon you catch, about the story, instead of what the core of Pokemon is about. And in that regard, Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee are incredible. And I feel like we're having these problems because the current Pokemon community is just so far removed from what core Pokemon is about. And I think that's because of the explosion of hacking and just fake information out there from the irresponsibility of other content creators. That's promotion of illegal game modification. It's promotion of cheating, fake information, and stuff like that. So real Pokemon just isn't that much a priority anymore, and it's creating most of the problems that we see in the Pokemon community right now. Pokemon Stadium, that is classic Pokemon at its core. You pick it up, you slap some Pokemon together in a team, and then you play against your friends for hours. Another game I've spent well over 1,000 hours playing, and then that social aspect is gone as well. Back in Pokemon X and Y, I would go out to, you know, Denny's. I would go out to these late night cafe places and then play with dozens of other people. This was happening before Pokemon X and Y really exploded after, because like I said, people wanted to get in. People wanted to become a part of the Pokemon community and then actually become a Pokemon master. But something happened. I think it's a societal shift. Generally, you know, the last couple of years have been really terrible for internet culture, entitlement, millennial Zoomer stuff going on. I think that's just also getting worse in general, and that's reflecting onto Pokemon. That people don't want to work for their things, and everyone gets a trophy society, so people don't want to feel bad by having to battle as well. It's so weird what's happened, but also just the Game Boy link cable, that if you played Pokemon back in those days, if you wanted to battle, you actually had to physically connect with someone, and everyone did it, you know? I feel like there was a time, you know, compared to like Pokemon X and Y, compared to Pokemon Red and Blue through Ruby version and stuff, where I was battling more in person than I was with all of these like Wi-Fi connectivity things going on, because it was just easier and more people wanted to do it. So the culture has definitely shifted drastically, but that doesn't change, like, the core of Pokemon. The core of Pokemon is still those competitive battles, and I think that's where the plot has been lost. And that brings us to Pokemon Sword and Shield, and also kind of going against the arguments that people are making. You know, if they're weighing it against story, like I said, I feel like that's very dishonest when you have something like the wild area out there, or making it about the individual Pokemon, when we're still going to have like 100 hours of gameplay or more locked into just the wild area. And the reason why you're doing all this, you know, I don't even know what that ingredient system is about. Forging for items. So we have daily things. We have Pokemon that can only be available at certain times. We have powerful Pokemon in the max raid battles. That's also more content. So maybe this gives you higher IV Pokemon. Maybe this is kind of functions like the SOS or the Dex Nav in some way, that you get other competitive benefits from finding these Pokemon, if not items, rewards, or it's the only way of getting that Pokemon. The only way of getting a Pangoro is through max raid battle, and you want to use the Pangoro competitively, you got to do it, so it all funnels into playing competitive Pokemon. And that's just going to be so much gameplay right there, to the point where having every Pokemon doesn't matter. The story isn't going to be that significant inside the games. And when you look at the Galar map, up here at the top, it looks like the Battle Frontier is back, which is another reason, like, why I don't understand people say, oh, I'm not a competitive player, but if you are a fan of the Battle Frontier and you played the Battle Frontier all that time, yeah, that's competitive. You know, whether or not you're using it to do PvP or something, this is a very specialized form of Pokemon battling, and it's about becoming the best on a much more elevated level of skill. So when you do that, it easily transitions into PvP. I never understood why people didn't do that. You know, if you have all these Battle Frontier points, if you have all these Battle Tree points, and then you just use those to buy those competitive items, you're going to be competitive with most of the players out there playing Pokemon, so you might as well engage with it. So people have, like, given up on engaging in what Pokemon is about, and it's so just weird how that has happened. I feel like we need to regain that. We need to remember what Pokemon is about. We need to acknowledge that the issues aren't the national dex. The issues aren't going to be the back and forth about the Pokemon and the story and, oh, there's a tree over here. No, Pokemon is as strong as its community. I've been saying this for years. I think that is the most true statement. Even if you have a bad Pokemon game, as long as the competitive is competent, then it's like if you have the best competitive on a bad Pokemon game, you have the best Pokemon game because everyone's there, everyone's enjoying it. That's what everything about Pokemon builds up to. You know, you're finding TMs, you're catching Pokemon, you're breeding, you're engaging in battle facilities to get all the items, you're doing extra exploration, you're getting money to buy further items to train your Pokemon. It all funnels into PvP. It all funnels into being the very best like no one ever was. And that's what can't be forgotten about Pokemon. So, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.